And we're back. This is Elliot Serrano and Jose Melendez coming to you from Dreamland Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. Thank you for joining us here on CCW TV, the Comic Culture Warrior video channel. All right, so we took a look at a DC book, a Marvel book, an Image book. Let's take another look at another Image book.
Maybe the best Image book.
Best Image book ever.
Probably the best.
I thought that was pretty cute. Invincible
Returns, #1.
This is the bold new era of Invincible by Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley. You guys have heard us sing the praises of this creative team in the past.
And the return of the prodigal son, Corey Walker, co-creator of Invincible.
In a backup issue, in a backup story.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in Invincible Returns is kind of, it's Kirkman giving noobs a jumping on point. Another jumping on point, because he's done this a couple times, actually. I think every year or so, I want to say like every 8 months or so, even less than a year, he will write an issue that is geared towards new readers.
Well, not only is it geared for new readers, but it's pretty much essentially the next issue of Invincible for everyone who's been following Invincible.
For following, too.
So it's the best of both worlds.
Right. He brings everything together, helps get you caught up if you haven't been reading it, and advances the story. What happens in Invincible Return is we have the end of the... what was it? I want to call it the trilobite, but it was those things that they were...
Oh, yeah, I know what
the
you're
alien
talking
thingies that they fought. They fake.
I can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
Which I'm very ashamed to admit.
It's essentially we start off with Invincible in between crises, which is really very rare for him because he's always got one thing after another. And he's talking with the head of the I forgot the name of the organization, the Global Defense Agency, because
Cecil.
He's the guy who, in previous issues of Invincible, he's always butting heads with Mark. He would be like that Henry Gyrich character from S.H.I.E.L.D. Remember in a Marvel when you had the guy who had to be like the liaison between S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers, and he was always butting heads with the Avengers because he didn't they didn't understand him and he needed to control them and blah, 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 blah. Well, you have that here in the beginning of this issue, and what do you do? How does Kirkman take the cliche and turn it on its head again? He starts off with the hero actually having a civil conversation with the head of the Global Defense Organization, the one that he's supposed to be at odds with it from time to time.
Yeah, because Cecil really screwed him over a couple of times.
Cecil did really screw him over, but when you read this, you're like, you can really understand where he's coming from.
No, again, this is what Kirkman does really well, is that he gives you both sides of the story.
Right.
And it gives you... Yeah, right.
But here's the thing that I get. Here's the thing that I don't get. I'm sorry. You read this, and you're like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Why don't more comic book writers do this kind of thing?
Because other comic book writers... The big ones are just lazy. That's what we call it. It's just lazy storytelling. It's like if they really wanted to put the time and effort into telling a good story, this is what it would be.
Because a lot of folks will say that, well, if you let the two leads, if these kinds of leads have this conversation, it diffuses the drama. You don't have that friction anymore, and it takes the drama away. Where, if anything, no, it just forces the writer to have to be more, to work harder, as you said, to give these characters more fully realized motivations so that you get that drama.
And what happens after the fourth page of this conversation is that there's more friction on the horizon.
Yes.
Because Invincible doesn't know that Cecil and the government reconstructed it in Conquest. And Conquest escaped. Right. Mark thinks that he's dead.
Right.
And then she's like, well, we'll deal with that
when the time comes. Yeah. And he gives a very good reason as to why he doesn't tell Mark up front, too. Because it's like, okay, we got to get this kid back on our side now. Because right now, with that kid having this kind of power out there and us not really knowing how to work with him, how to control him, that's going to be a bad thing.
And did we mention that Mark killed somebody in the last issue?
No, we did not mention that.
Yeah,
and that's true.
There's a huge thing that happens in the story is that Mark killed somebody the alien, the host body, the human host body for the aliens, and he needed to sever the connection with all the aliens, so he just killed him. And so Cecil's like, yeah, this guy's we need to rein this guy in because we don't want this guy out there killing people and him not being on our side. Right.
And the discussion that they have is really, it's so fully realized, and yet you don't have, I mean, there are really no yes or no answers to these questions that they're asking. Mm-hmm. You know, the world is, you know, I know we've had this discussion in the past where we don't like ambiguity, you know, all this ambiguity and crap going on in comic books because it's just too much like real life. Whereas Kirkman is able to take real life, the ambiguity of real life, and just add a new shade to his scripts and drama to his characters. These characters have discussions about what real people would feel like if they lived in comic books. Mm-hmm. That's the way I really feel.
That's true. Yeah.
Without compromising what it is to be a hero in comic books. Because Mark is just wrestling. He's been wrestling with this for a while. The whole idea of killing an enemy to solve the problem.
And as I was reading this, how apropos is it that this comic story is being told after last month when we were just railing against violence in comic books, and how Bendis just never shows any repercussions to any violence, and no one ever thinks about it. And then this issue comes along, and of course this is exactly the story that we would wanted to see from somebody.
You want to see a hero struggling with these dilemmas and going through the whole thing, the whole feeling of what it is like to take a life. That it's not just something that you do and then you move on. And even Invincible himself says, he goes, I know I did it. I know in a way I kind of solved the problem by doing it, but I still felt wrong doing it.
He felt wrong doing it, and he felt that it was the easiest way possible.
The easiest way possible.
And he felt bad because he's like, he didn't want to put any effort into thinking about what to do. He just wanted to end it.
And there's a great line in here. I hope I can find this really quick. There's a great line in here when Mark is talking to Adam Eve about what he's doing, about what it was like killing people, and he finally comes to this. He comes to this conclusion. He goes, I'm done with killing. It's too easy. It changes things. I'm just not convinced it's the answer anymore. Even if it would prevent future attacks, it seems to also potentially prevent good things. Mm-hmm. Like some of the villains that he meets earlier in the book who have been reformed and are able to take what they've done and use it for good. Had these villains been killed, they wouldn't be able to use their abilities for good. So Mark is learning, killing someone is not always the best thing to do, because you might think that you're doing it for the betterment of mankind, when in reality you could be harming mankind by doing it. Mm-hmm. Really, I've got to say, what Kirkman does in Invincible, and we've said this in the past, I really wish we could see more of this sort of thing going on in comic books. It's more than just, punching and fighting and things getting blowed up real good. It's characters really considering the consequences of their actions.
And you have him fighting a huge dragon.
Yeah, I mean, you get that too. I mean, at no point, don't get us wrong, it's not like this book is didactic or preachy or anything. Yeah. This is we said it before, it's a solid superhero comic with all the things that good superhero comics offer.
If you guys think that we are going to get sick of talking about how awesome this book is, as long as this is awesome, you think again, because I will talk about this book every fucking segment if I could. Just about how great it is and like how more comics should be like this.
It should be.
And I don't think that's ever going to happen, though, until this book like starts selling better. And then people are like, oh, that's what people want. Unfortunately, we can only get Invincible for now, and in Jeff Parker comics.
Yeah, why isn't Kirkman writing Spider-Man?
Because he doesn't want to work for Marvel anymore.
Doesn't want to work for Marvel? I mean, I would really like to see him work on Spider-Man.
Well,
Invincible is Spider-Man. I know that.
I think D-Mar made that comment on our blog. This is this generation's Spider-Man.
Yeah, but it's like I would like to see him play with those toys, much like Hickman is playing with Fantastic Four.
Now, I'm happy seeing Kirkman doing his own things right now.
That's true, and then there are a lot of artists right now that are finding that it's really more beneficial for them to just do their own thing, build their own houses instead of making somebody else's house.
And thank God the old costume is back.
Well, kind of.
Well,
there's some alteration.
Alteration was the color scheme.
I
hated that black and blue one.
That was kind of, I think that was Kirkman's, also his commentary on
it. It was his comment. I completely agree why he did it. That's fine. I'm not saying, but I'm just happy that the original costume is back. The original color scheme of the costume is back. It was a dark story. It was a dark time for Invincible, and all that bad stuff was happening. But now it's time to get back to basics, and that's kind of what he's doing with this by giving him his costume back. And so, yeah.
Another cool thing, also, we said this from the beginning, is that you have Ryan Otley doing the main story, but Cory Walker does the backup. So you get to see Cory Walker back on Invincible again.
Oh my God, this comic's so violent.
It is. I forgot. I'd forgotten that because I've read like the first trade and stuff of it, and I forgot how pretty gruesome.
Well, during
it can be.
during that Conquest storyline, but
yeah.
But no, the second story is Cory Walker doing the backup where Mark goes out later that evening from the first story out with Eve. To have one more date before, because he's got to go off with his father and Alan the alien to go start the whole Viltrumite War. So he's having one more evening with Eve, and Eve is struggling with telling him that she's pregnant, because he still doesn't know that. But the backup story is the story for people who've never read Invincible. It catches you up on everything important that's ever happened in Invincible, so when the next issue comes out, you'll know everything you need to know.
Right.
But it shouldn't stop you from going back and buying all the 10 trades that came out already.
And or the big omnibuses that are out there, too.
Yeah, but I mean, this book is a great jumping on point. Great jumping on point.
But don't get me wrong, Cory Walker is an exceptional artist, and I know he was a co-creator of Invincible, but I've just gotten I'm just so into Ryan Otley's interpretation right now, and his storytelling and everything that he does with Invincible. You know, to me, he has become to me, the quintessential Invincible artist. I mean, well, really,
there's only been two.
There's only been two, right? There's only been Otley and Walker, but to me, Ryan Otley, outside of Haunt, what else is he doing? This guy really.
Well, he's not on Haunt anymore. He was just, but I think that's why this book has been late. I mean, this book is like 2 months late already.
Yeah. I really think that this is something that it makes careers. Like Starman did for Tony Harris.
Yeah,
this is Ryan Otley's. This is something. If you're not reading this book, and we say this every time we talk about it,
but it seems like every time we say that, more people pick it up, which is good.
Because if you're not reading this book, and I always say this because this book deserves to be, and I don't mean this as hyperbole. This book deserves to be a top 10 selling book. Mm-hmm. Okay, top 20 selling book. I'll give you top 25. Heck, give me top 30. But it's not even there. It's not there.
It's not even in the top 100.
Yeah. This book deserves to sell a lot more. Deserves to have a much greater readership. Because this is the kind of book that all kinds of readers of all ages can get into and enjoy and come together over. Another line before we conclude this. The whole thing with Adam Eve, how she's pregnant. Mm-hmm. And then
she's talking to Mark's old friend.
Mark's old friend. And Mark kind of says the obvious. Well, maybe the two of you shouldn't have been... And she's not happy.
No, I mean, it balances humor and seriousness and action. And I mean, this book has everything.
And he does...
everything.
The one thing I love about this, Kirkman does not dodge the issues. He does not dodge the issues. He acknowledges them, and he goes after them.
Yeah, there's no Skrull babies in this universe. Nope.
All right.
Lazy storytelling.
When we come back, we'll have a look at another book.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And that's Rants.
See you then.